At 9:27 a.m. on the 24th of March 2015, a plane got in contact with the Marseille en route control center. It was an Airbus A320-211 operated by Germanwings headed from Barcelona to Düsseldorf. Everything seemed normal. The captain read back the air traffic controller's clearance at 9:30, allowing him to fly to an en route waypoint. Only a few minutes later, something was off. The control center in Marseille saw that the altitude for the aircraft was around 30,000 feet, almost 2,000 feet lower than the original cruise altitude and declining. Marseille contacted the plane and asked what altitude the plane was cleared for, but they received no response at all. Over the next 30 seconds, Marseille tried to contact the flight crew 2 more times. No answer. At 9:40, radar contact was lost. The French air traffic controllers triggered a distress phase declaring that the aircraft and its occupants were in imminent danger and required immediate assistance. The cockpit voice and flight recorder were found in the same week, although they were both severely damaged. When flight investigators stitched together the data, a story of intentional action formed. The plane was hijacked, but not by terrorists. Let's go back. After 2001, cockpits were changed in order to protect those flying the plane from potential hijackers. To enter the cockpit, a crew member has to call the cockpit on the intercom and press the pound key on a keypad, which buzzes the cockpit. At that moment, the pilot can switch the door control from norm to unlock, and the crew member can enter. The crew is also given emergency codes which they can use if there are concerns for those in the cockpit. In that case, the crew member will use the emergency code on the keypad, triggering a 30-second timer, and the cockpit door will open for 5 seconds. However, there are situations where those in the cockpit want to override the access by the crew, like during a hijacking. In that situation, the pilots can switch the door control to lock, overriding all emergency access. And it's that mechanism that the co-pilot used to permanently lock access to the cockpit while the plane began to descend. The captain was locked out of the cockpit without any control. How could this have happened? Pilots are required to do health screenings and annual checkups, but mental health is easier overlooked than physical. Since pilots operate under an honor system, they're expected to self-evaluate their health, and this can be an issue. The co-pilot was declared unfit to work by his doctor, but he decided to just not tell his employer. But if someone like him is a risk to public safety, a doctor can break doctor-patient confidentiality and report him to authorities. So why didn't at least one of the multiple doctors who wrote multiple sick notes and declared him unfit to fly think that the co-pilot may have presented a risk for public safety? Enough of a risk that he couldn't be trusted to report himself? We don't know. The doctors may have believed the co-pilot was a risk to himself, but not to others. Being depressed does not make you a killer. Or maybe the doctors were just scared. Breaking doctor-patient confidentiality does not come without risks. It's even possible cultural factors could have played a role. Privacy and data protection are valued really highly in Germany, but trying to understand why doctor-patient confidentiality wasn't broken is a dilemma, an issue best left to healthcare professionals and ethics professors. And unfortunately, we're YouTubers, so we encourage you to read more about it in these articles. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It was insanely hard to make. We love animation and deep research, but it's expensive. That's why we have sponsors on this channel. By the way, a lot of our animation in particular actually has a lot to do with math, be it geometry or linear algebra for specific shaders or code for scripted and procedural animation. Both can be exciting and fascinating, especially if taught in a playful manner. That's where Brilliant comes in. It gives you skills that can be applied to everything, literally, be it basic logic, artificial intelligence, data science, or physics. But it gives it to you in a way that isn't earth-shatteringly boring. To try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/fern or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off of Brilliant's annual premium subscription. You always have your phone on you, which means Brilliant always gives you access to learn math and science anywhere, even if it's only for a few minutes each day. You can improve your skills while in a tram, walking, or while your significant other is trying to connect with you. We personally love the app. There's something incredibly satisfying about really getting something, about solving a puzzle or logic problem. Why don't you give it a try?